I don't want you guys cricking your neck on my slides. We were just talking about this at dinner, right, Lou? This is a result of this last 6 months of looking at the police overtime issue. And what I found with the police overtime issue is more of an issue with the town than just the police department. And let me see if I can try to explain that. The Combined Area Financial Review, which is something we just went through in November, in June of 2010, said that the town manager, subject to council approval, may do various things, and that the adopted budget cannot be amended in any way without council approval. Now, in May of 2011, that changed. It changed to say that the budget amendments requiring council approval are 4 items: transfers between funds, transfers to fund additional personnel or increased expenditures, transfers that reduce or eliminate funding for items designated in capital improvement, transfers that reduce or eliminate funding for debt service. However, all other operational budget amendments that involve transfers between line items or expenditure categories require the approval of the town manager. So I asked Mr. Arvisu, and I forgot his first name, Greg, Corey?
Correct.
Corey Arvisu, who's the gentleman who gave us the CAFR report in November, our last CAFR, how our internal controls are. And he said they do look at internal controls when they do our audit.
Councilman?
I also did talk to staff about this. So the CAFR ending in June 30, where was I? I was on internal audits. What the auditor does when he looks at it is he does look at our internal controls to make sure there are internal controls in place and make sure that things aren't being missed. However, if you read the red up there, for the purposes of expressing an opinion, they do not express an opinion about the effectiveness of the town's internal control. So why is this important? It's important because our revenue streams and our expenditure streams are pretty closely matched. We need to watch our dollars very, very closely. So what I'm about to say is not a gotcha. Okay, I've already talked to 2 very senior staff people about this. We've had discussions about this. There's no town cover-up. There's nothing being done illegally. It's just that there are practices which have become institutionalized over time, which we, as a result of this report, might want to discuss at a later date. The town's not involved in any cover-up. Let me make that. And again, let me say that the practices I'm about to bring up, which I discovered through the police department, I have every reason to believe are practices which are going throughout the town. For example, in the police department, there's overtime being spent for a program in the police department where there is no money authorized to spend overtime. Now, when I take that to a senior staff person, the individual says, "What are you worried about?" The department head, in this case the chief, is not going to go over his allotted money for overtime. Now, the council authorized the chief $200,000 roughly in general fund revenues for overtime. He has a lot more than that, but those are, grant funding, okay? Roughly $200,000 in general fund revenues. But we also said, Mr. Department Head, you have $200,000 in general fund revenues for overtime. However, so much goes to this department, so much goes to this department, so much goes to this department, as per your request. And you know what? You didn't request any overtime money for this department. Yet there's overtime money being used. There are also programs within the police department, and I am sure and I know there are programs within our town which are not identified as line items in our budget. And the only way the council can make a policy decision is to have all those programs identified. Somewhat cumbersome the first year, although I understand from Mr. Caton when I talked to him, it's not really going to be a problem for him to do this. For example, how much money does the Citizens Planning Institute cost the town of Oro Valley? We don't know. The Citizens Planning Institute is a program within the DIS service. How much money does, for example, a water safety instruction class cost the town of Oro Valley? And how many people are benefited from that instruction? We need to know that. We need to know how much money is being spent on take-home cars. Now, that's not a policy. That's a program. It's an unfunded program. But we need to know how much that program costs. We need to know how much every program in this community costs so we can make rational decisions on how we want to spend our money. We might want to say, we want a little less in this and put more in this fund or whatever, but that'd be a council discussion. But we can't make that discussion and have that discussion unless everything's identified. And this is what came up in the police department. Again, it's not just the police department. Every department in this town, I would presume, have programs which if you look in the manager's recommended budget, you'll find a master program, but you won't find the sub-programs listed as how much they cost. There are administrative decisions being made that I don't think, personally, as the mayor said, this is me, personally are subject to administrative decisions. We have just picked up a new position in one of our departments. This position was not in our town manager's recommended budget. It's not in the organization chart. Yet, Personnel Policy 6, which we just looked at last week, or last meeting, says that all new positions have to be approved by the town council. Now, let me be perfectly honest. This particular position, in my mind, was justified. And in my mind, was not only justified, but saved us some money, like $20,000. So there's no doubt in my mind that if the town manager found a need, subsequent to the approval of the budget, found a need for a new position, came to the town council and said, I need this position, here's how I'm going to fund it, in fact, I'm going to save you money, it could probably be a consent agenda item. But the fact is, it needs to come to council. It needs to be made transparent. I know people hate that word. But it's the only way we know what's going on, and it's the only way you know what's going on. So we need to have these kind of actions. So unless we know what's going on, we can't be held accountable. I can't sit there to Joe Citizen in the spices aisle at Fry's when they say, what do you know about this? And say, I don't know. I wasn't aware of it. I need to be aware of that stuff. We all, 7 of us, need to be aware of that stuff. Yeah, we'll have our debates when it comes time to allocating money, but at least it's an open debate. It's open to you. It's open to us. We know what's going on. So let me say, really, in closing, nothing's being done illegal. I just think we can do things a little bit better. And this is as a result, this came to mind as a result of the overtime study. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with exposing something that's wrong with your town. This came from, you guys who went to Solera thing, breakfast, can remember one of the legislators with this quote. There's nothing wrong with doing that as long as we discuss how to fix it. And that's the purpose of this council report, is I think there are problems. They were exposed as a result of my study of the overtime situation with the police department. They've exposed, in my mind, some areas in the community that we need to take care of here on the council. And I think we can take care of it. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but we need to identify our programs and we need to identify where the money's being spent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.